Now, a senior Labour MP has told this programme that changes will have to be made in the party's rules for future leadership contests. The comments from John Ashworth, Deputy Chair of the party, follow bitter arguments over who can and cannot vote in the poll of party members and supporters for a successor to Ed Miliband. We'll be speaking to Mr Ashworth later, but first, let's see what some voters make of it all and find out what they think of the frontrunner, Jeremy Corbyn. Will he make Labour more or less likely to win power? Well, here in the studio with us, Rosie Lucas, April Mackenzie McQueen, Richard Wilkinson and Shanice Evans. Thank you all very much for joining us. First of all, just tell us who you are and where you're coming from in terms of who you've supported previously and who you want now. You start, Richard.
Well, I'm a Labourite at the end of the day. I've been referred to as Blairite in the past, but I'm a Labourite. My sort of Labour ethos began with probably Kinnock. I know that there was photographs of me as a child on marches with Kinnock when I was in a pushchair and sort of doing school elections in the 80s following Kinnock. And so Kinnock and John Smith are my sort of moderate views within the Labour Party.
And who do you want now in this contest?
I voted. I am a member. I have been a member for 20 odd years. I've voted for Yvette Cooper.
Okay. Okay, so
that was my first preference.
All right. Well, Shanice, where do you stand?
I originally actually voted for the Green Party, but that's only because people are quick to say, I like their policies, but I'm not going to vote for them because they're not going to get into power. But that is exactly why they're not going to get into power, because you're not voting. However, I was very torn between Greens and Labour. So I think that my favourite at the moment is probably Yvette Cooper, possibly Corbyn, because he does have a lot of similarities with the Green policies. Okay,
April, tell us your history.
Well, I voted for Labour in the last two elections. However, I see myself as a voter that's willing to go for the right party and the right leader. But right now my affiliations are still with Labour.
And under which leader in the future do you hope?
Well, originally it was Andy Burnham, but lately I'm more inclined to see Corbyn as the leader of the Labour Party. I think it's time to see a leader that's actually willing to stand up for the values of Labour, to say this is who we are, and it's time for the Labour Party to show that they are actually different from the other parties.
Okay, Rosie.
Normally I'm Labour, but in the last election I voted Green because I didn't feel as if Labour was liberal and left-wing enough, and I feel like if Corbyn brought the party back towards the left like he's saying he will, then that might bring me back in to Labour, but at the moment I feel like they're just Tories.
Okay, and I think we've got someone else actually we can bring in right now, Sandra Godley. Sandra, just tell us what your background is and hey there.
Hello.
What's your background and who do you want?
I'm a singer-songwriter. I live in Coventry, coming from the West Midlands, and I've always voted Labour, but the last election I decided to vote Conservative. Not that I agree with all their policies, but I have a family and I want to give them some vision and the whole thing of creating wealth and prosperity and sustainability.
Okay, so quickly, who do you want this time?
Within the Labour Party? I'm going to go for Yvette, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, there's been lots of discussion about the way the contest has been run. Charles Clarke saying it's been a disaster. What do you all think about that?
Totally agree with him.
Why?
I think it's been a complete farce from start to finish. Well, it's been an absolute disaster since before it started, to be perfectly honest. I think the whole idea of this £3 supporters thing was bound to be a problem, and they should have preempted that in the first place.
In what way, though? Because it's obviously got more people engaged who might not otherwise have been engaged.
I didn't vote because I didn't want to pay the £3. I'm a teacher, I don't have £3. Right. And I didn't feel as if I should
But you wouldn't
pay.
have been able to vote anyway, otherwise, without this new system. The £3 is enabling other people to get involved.
Well, she could have voted if she'd become a member.
Yeah.
Okay,
but I had
without
to pay,
paying the £3. Yeah, okay, I see that.
But my issue is, if you're a member, a fully paid up member, and you're active, then by all means have a say in it, have a vote in it. But this idea of saying, right, we'll have our members that have a say in it, but then we'll also add this £3 supporters thing, which somebody in the first instance should have realised that that would open it up to potential for non-Labour supporters to just vote as members. Now,
but what about someone like Shanice? Because Shanice, you were Green in the past. Do you think Shanice shouldn't have been allowed to vote?
I do actually. I'm afraid I do believe that she shouldn't.
Just not Tories. Is that the issue?
No. I believe that she shouldn't be able to vote.
You shouldn't. She shouldn't be able to vote.
Yeah.
So Shanice, tell him why you should be able to vote.
I believe a supporter is someone who has voted for the party.
I see.
However, what if you were torn like I was, and I voted for Green specifically just because I said from day one I'm going to, because if nobody does, then they're definitely not going to get into power.
Absolutely fine, and I have no problem with anybody voting.
But you just said you didn't want me to vote.
No, I don't want you to vote for the leader. I have no problem with you voting for anybody that you want to vote for, and it's the Labour Party's responsibility to get people like yourself and people like Sandra back on board and actually do it themselves and change things so that in the future you see yourself not torn anymore, and you see yourself in a position where you think, actually, I now like what the Labour Party are doing, I do want to vote for them.
Couldn't we have a say in who leads it to make it the way that we would want to vote for? Because if we're both Green, because we don't feel they're Liberal enough, why wouldn't we have a say in getting a leader who would bring us back on board? Why wait 5 years down the line until they've sorted themselves out and made themselves wantable to me? Why not me have a chance to make them the party I want them to be now?
The Americanised idea of this open primaries and having sort of supporters to say, well, you have a say in choosing who we are then going to vote for. That's not a bad idea at all. And to say, OK, if you want to become a supporter, you can do. And now from your input, you can choose the candidates that the membership then decide to vote for. That would have been a pretty good idea, I think. I think there was sound idea on that. But to then say...
though, I mean, because obviously the debate has been around whether the system has been abused. Do you think it's been open to abuse,
I think and isn't it today that the candidates are actually meeting together?
They're all meeting Harriet Harman to talk about it.
So we have a flurry of voters, maybe from the Conservative Party and whoever else, just registering their vote to make sure that apparently Corbyn doesn't win. Well, that is not open and transparent, and is open to ridicule, really.
That has been.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that there were as many, Tory or other
totally
party
agree
voters.
with
I don't think they've had a secret meeting in a pub or signing up.
I think it's been quite overstated. I think if it was the candidate in the front for running that was the preferred candidate of the senior party members, I'm pretty sure they'll be happy with it. But because it's Corbyn who's at the forefront, then it's becoming a problem. And I feel like it's being overstated because they don't want him to become
agree with that.
Leader.
Can I just say, I totally agree with that. And my point is not about that. It's about the fact that we're having this discussion. The reality is that we're having a discussion about the policy, the way that it's been done, the processes behind it, and it's turned the Labour Party into a joke. And if they hadn't done this £3 membership, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Has it been, though, a proper debate about the heart and soul of the Labour Party, which is what everybody was saying was needed? Why not? Because it's reflected the spectrum of opinion, hasn't it?
Personally, I've just felt like it's been mudslinging against Corbyn. It's not a race for the leadership of the Labour Party anymore. It's who can say something about Corbyn, or who can get on Corbyn's side, or who can all regroup away from Corbyn. It's not about Labour leadership anymore. It's about making sure that crazy man who voted against the war isn't suddenly going to be in charge.
Part of that is because the long-term solution for the Labour Party, which is that many people feel that Corbyn, if he's elected, will not be the kind of candidate that can be a statesman for our country in the future.
But if I was able to vote, I want Corbyn to be the leaders, because he would make Labour back to being about people and back to being about policies and values and
But every party says that they're about
And if he's not going to be a leader, then he's not going to be a leader. That doesn't mean that he's not going to create an environment where a future leader can't flourish.
Why do you say you don't think he can be a statesman?
Well, for me, I'm looking for a charismatic leader. I'm looking for someone who's got the gravitas.
He's someone that's got people queuing outside.
Yeah, but do you know what I think? And I've been reading some of the broadsheets today. It almost feels like there's a celebrity culture around him, because he looks like our uncle, is what my uncle.
The great irony is he's made it. He's come out saying we don't want personality politics, and he's made it about him. He's made it personalities, and the whole debate is about personalities. It's about Corbyn, the person, not about any of the policies. No one is debating the policies that are there. No one's debating the fact that
people agree with.
Well, they're not. I mean, you said a
But
great...
isn't him being in the contest and the debate that's being had around it giving voters a clear choice? Because he does stand apart from the other candidates.
I don't think it is, because the other three candidates have been frankly hopeless in the whole debate. They have been like rabbits in headlights. They've not had a clue what to say or how to say it. They have carried on doing the political thing, which is avoiding questions and not actually coming out with things, because they realise that's the way to get the likes of Sandra back on board.
So in
the
a
people that went to the Tory party.
Do each of you kind of have a clear view of what each of the four candidates stands for?
No.
Could you pigeonhole them?
I pigeonhole as potential future Tories and Corbyn.
Ooh.
That's how I think.
Yeah, I just see in pretty much the same way, Tory Light and Corbyn. I think one of the things...
Just briefly, is that the way you will see it, or does anybody else stand out amongst the other three as
I think it depends, because some people's policies, I think, are more Labour than others. So I kind of agree with some things that Yvette is saying, like on children's care, and she wants to invest a lot more money in science and research development. I think that's going to help our cause, especially technology is such a big thing these days. So I don't think she is too Tory. I think she's just borderline. That's why I would prefer her than any of the others.
Why do you all think Labour did not do well at the last election? Was it because it wasn't
they were
left-wing enough?
Yeah,
not
they weren't
distinctive?
left. So
No,
people in Scotland all
absolutely
voted
not.
SNP, or they voted Green, or for some strange reason people went to UKIP, because the point of Labour is that they're values driven, and you vote for them because you feel as if they believe that they could make this country better. It's not all about the economy,
There's a
it's
big
about
problem
values.
the Labour Party has, and this panel is already addressing it, or already stating the same thing. The Labour Party throughout history has had this issue where, because we believe something is right, we think it therefore must be right, and the people will therefore believe
The
us.
centre ground shifting argument.
But the reality is the polling says otherwise. Now, the TUC polled a massive survey after the election to find out why the Labour Party lost the last election. There were three reasons. It wasn't trusted on the economy, it wasn't trusted to be tough enough on welfare, and it wasn't trusted on immigration. Those were the three reasons. This is the TUC. This is not some right-wing polling agency coming out with this. This is the TUC have come out with. These are the three reasons. So to suddenly think that the way to get the likes of Sandra, who have voted Labour all their life and then gone to the Tories because they believe that the Tories will be better for their family, the way to get them to vote Labour is not to go to the left and say to people, right, we're going to nationalise, we're going to re-nationalise everything, and you're going to pay an extra £2,000 a year in taxes. That's not going to get Sandra to vote for you.
You've forgotten one thing, though, which is that obviously a lot of people did not want to follow Ed Miliband. You've got a character there.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, you can have as many policies as you want, but if I can't be engaged with you and follow you as a visionary, it ain't going to happen.
How do you all
Totally
see
agree.
the Labour Party going forward after this? Do you think it's strengthened? Do you think it's indicated that it's listening to the people with a system like this, which has engaged people like you?
I think it might do much better this time, especially if Corbyn, if Corbyn is the leader, because I think it's time to show who the party is. I think that UKIP did well. I think that SNP did well, Plaid did well, because they said this is who we are and these are our values. And I think it's time to give people a choice between the different parties.
But isn't it really interesting that we're sitting here as literally this side of the table, three young people wanting Corbyn and wanting Liberal and wanting exciting and wanting something fresh and new, and two people who are more experienced,
Mature.
wise, some might say, wanting to think about the economy. And I just feel like, as a young person, I didn't even have £3 to pay, so I'm struggling in the economy, but I still would like a future where my children are going to be happy.
I feel that Corbyn is passionate about what he's saying, and I think that he's talking sense. That's why he relates to us. You don't need to be in a specific age range to understand sense and to understand morals and things that are right and just. And I think that is why people connect with him. I think people underestimate young people,
Yeah.
The
and they
reality
think we're
is,
some
though,
sort of thug
and he
that doesn't
speaks to
understand.
us.
Can I just
actually
say,
comes to us.
can I just say, young people, I was young once.
We all were.
I was young 20 years ago, and I got older. That's the reality of young people.
Does politics,
young people
before,
now
I just want a
will
quick-
be older in 5 years' time.
All right,
It's all about
quick final talk from all of you.
It's boring. It's
It
not
is.
about
Okay,
passionate.
you're
Yeah.
saying exactly
Disagree.
what everybody was saying in the run-up to the last election. Politicians don't listen. Politics is boring. Has anything changed? Do you feel that they're listening now?
Corbyn is changing it for me.
Absolutely not.
they're still not listening to
having this
people like you.
debate,
Absolutely not.
and his popularity might change things, even if it's between the other MPs within the Labour Party. They might change because they're seeing that he's actually a forerunner between us as a youth, and so it has to change.
The perception you have, I understand the perception you have, but the reality is very, very different. Jeremy Corbyn is being very controlled. He's being very, very diplomatic around
you don't
things,
think that the other candidates
and as are all the other, and nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing has changed.
You can carry on chatting outside the studio. It's been great to have you all here sharing your views. Not much longer to wait till we find out who the winner of the contest is. Thank you, and thank you very much for joining us today. Let's talk to John Ashworth, the Labour MP for Leicester South, joins us now, also on the procedure committee for the leadership contest and the NEC. What do you think? Are you happy with the system?
Well, we've got to remember that the system is effectively a large primary. We have nearly 600,000 people taking part in this process. 350,000 people have signed up since the general election. On balance, that has got to be a good thing, and we are effectively having a primary to select both our Labour leader but also the person who is our candidate for Prime Minister in 2020. But obviously, if people are signing up who are not Labour supporters, who have campaigned against the Labour Party because they're Green Party candidates or Conservative Party members, then they are not eligible to take part, and they are quite rightly being ruled out of order in this process.
Is the system robust enough, though, to make sure that that is the case? And there was legal advice, wasn't there, to say that there needed to be measures taken to be absolutely sure of the past voting history of anybody now signing up to vote in this contest, and that legal advice was discounted by the committees?
Well, first of all, the Labour Party is working flat out on this. In fact, every member of Labour Party staff is working on this, and constituency Labour parties across the country are being asked to report people that they have queries about. For example, in my own Leicester South constituency, I've had a sort of a trickling of a few Green Party members, even a Conservative Party member who works for a prominent local Conservative MP try to sign up. Well, as soon as we spotted them, we immediately raised them with the head office, and they've been ruled out of order because people who campaigned against the Labour Party. Yeah.
Just to be clear then,
Yes.
are you saying that anybody that voted in the last election for any party other than Labour should not be voting in this contest? Green Party or whatever?
No, that's not... No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying somebody who campaigned against the Labour Party. You know, the Labour Party exists to win electoral office. We don't have sort of coalitions or electoral pacts with rival parties. If somebody campaigned against the Labour Party, then they don't get a vote.
But it's okay if you voted
for a different party.
Right.
Well, there was a proposal to go back to those people who hadn't voted Labour and ask them if they are now Labour supporters. If they said to us, no, we've changed our mind, I made a big mistake by voting Green Party or Liberal Democrats, but I'm now a Labour supporter, they would have been ruled in order. If they came back and said, actually, I'm still a Green Party supporter, they would have been ineligible. But I have to say, when you're dealing with you've got 350,000 new members or new people taking part in this process, you are always going to get, in what is effectively a primary, like the Democrats and Republicans have in America, people from rival parties trying to get involved. But I think the processes the Labour Party have put in place are as robust as they can be in the circumstances.
It's a mess, though, isn't it, when you say that it's fine if somebody has historically always voted Conservative or for any other party, and now at this stage they come in and say that they're voting in this contest, potentially with other interests at heart than people who have been Labour Party members for a very long time.
Yes, and that person, there's not much... If that Conservative voter was a Conservative activist or a Conservative councillor or signed a Conservative candidate's nomination papers, they'll be ruled out of order. But if they're a sort of person who's never revealed their voting preference publicly, but has decided to sign up and pay the £3 and vote for a candidate, the system is never going to expose that person.
So the system is not robust.
A perfect system.
The system
is not robust. The system is as robust as it can be, but you're never... I'm not saying that. I think it's as robust as it can be, but you're never going to have a perfect system. To be frank, if that person signed up as a Labour Party member and voted in the old electoral system, we still wouldn't have identified them. And indeed, on the old electoral college, when we used to have a trade union section and an MP section, Conservative Party voters who are members of trade unions would get a vote. And they would vote And they would come and tell you, I voted because they think it was a bit of a, isn't it funny, I voted. I mean, that has always happened because to a certain degree, you're relying on people's honesty to tell you whether they're a Labour supporter or not. But if they tick the box on the leaflet saying they're a Labour supporter, then, you've got to trust them to an extent.
So do you think it needs to be different next time around?
Well, there is clearly dissatisfaction amongst the membership about the way this process has been handled. I mean, I'd be daft if I didn't recognise that. So I'd have thought that the National Executive, which I'm a member of, that's the ruling body of the Labour Party for viewers who don't know all these different phrases, probably should look at this again and review it. But I don't want to say, let's definitely do this, let's definitely do that. We were in the middle of a contest, but I'd have thought it would be sensible for the National Executive to at least review this after the election and decide what to do for the future.
Does that not completely undermine, though, whoever wins this contest?
Well, that's why I'm not saying we definitely should have rule changes, but I think it would be sensible for the members of the NEC to look back at the way in which the contest has been handled. I mean, that is just good management of the party.
Surely the time to look at it is before the contest gets underway. Be absolutely confident with the rules that you're applying and say whoever wins this contest is someone that has fair and correct endorsement, and we back them all the way. If you're saying at this point, well, this is the system we're stuck with, we'll look at it again in the future, it doesn't really bode well for the winner of it being able to actually say completely, everybody supports me on this.
No. I think whoever wins this will have, in your phrase, that fair endorsement of the membership, and I will support them. That's not the point I'm making. I'm saying it's probably, given that there are party members who have concerns about the process, I think it'd be reasonable for the NEC to review the way in which the leadership contest took place. There were questions about the timing, there's questions about whether we should have done it to finish it by the end of July and so on. I think that's just a reasonable approach for members of the NEC to look back. But that is not to undermine a new leader, not remotely. And I think that whoever wins this will have won fairly, and I will support that leader.
Has this damaged the Labour Party? Will the Labour Party be stronger going forward from this?
Well, I think the Labour Party, when we get our new leader, has got to pick itself up, and we've got to turn our attention to the Tories, because it's going to be a long, hard 5 years until the next general election. The Tories are doing things that all Labour Party members are vehemently opposed to. We've got to hold them to account in the House of Commons. We've got to be fighting them in a very serious set of elections next year in Scotland, in London and Wales. So yeah, there's a duty upon the Labour Party to pick ourselves up in September and turn our attention to taking on our opposition. And I hope, and I'll be playing my part, I hope the Labour Party does that, and I'll definitely be playing my part in taking on our opponents when we've got our new leader in place.
It's been a very divisive contest, hasn't it? Do you think the party can remain united going forward if Jeremy Corbyn won, for instance?
Well, there's certainly been a big debate in the Labour Party, but the Labour Party is democratic. We'll hopefully pull together, and the policies that we put forward over the next few years will be democratically decided by the whole Labour Party, from not just the Labour MPs in the shadow cabinet, but also the party members on the National Policy Forum, which decides our policy agenda in the conference. So, and we cannot afford to be infighting when we've got really important elections in Scotland, we've got really important elections for London Mayor and in Wales and in local government as well. Then we've got European elections, we've got a European referendum as well. There's a duty upon the Labour Party to pull together and to take the fight to the opposition, and I think that's what party members will want us to do.
What do you say to the fact that the Tories say Jeremy Corbyn is exactly the person that they want to win this contest?
Well, I'm an Yvette Cooper supporter. I think Yvette Cooper is a strong, resilient, tough Labour performer who puts us in the best place to win an election in 2020. And, I've gone for her because I'm thinking about who's going to win in constituencies like Bury North, a seat that we lost just by a few hundred votes, where I'm going to tomorrow, in fact, to talk to people and to ask them why they didn't vote Labour. In seats like Nuneaton, which became that famous election defeat for us on election night, who's going to win in those places? Now, I'm voting for Yvette because I think she's best placed to do that. But obviously, if Yvette doesn't win, we've got a duty to put forward a manifesto at the next election which hopefully wins broad support across the country, and we have a duty over the next few years to hold the Tory government to account. And
Andy Burnham's campaign manager has said that there could be a legal challenge after the outcome of this contest. So it might not all stop with whatever the result is.
Well, that's you need to get Andy Burnham's campaign manager on to talk about that. Look, Andy Burnham has said he's very worried about Tories
the process that's
signing
been
up.
put in place potentially does give rise to legal challenges, doesn't it? I mean, would it not have been wise to listen to the advice of lawyers when they said that there does need to be a more robust process to check the background of people voting in the contest?
My understanding from the briefings we've had on the NEC is that our lawyers think that the process is robust. There was a question about whether we need to add in an extra level of validation. That was something I supported, by the way, the extra level of validation at the relevant committee of the NEC. But as my understanding from our lawyers in the Labour Party is that we think the process is robust. But if Andy Burnham's
Hang on, sorry, just to clarify that, then you thought that what the lawyers thought was a good idea, which was to introduce an extra level of vetting, would have been a good idea. So therefore, that implies that he does think that there's a weakness in the fact it wasn't implemented. Doesn't it? No,
I think we should have gone. I'm happy. I was happy to add that layer, but we didn't go a lot. We decided it was unnecessary. But nonetheless, our lawyers think that what we are doing across the piece is robust. But if Andy Burnham's campaign thinks we need to be doing more, I would be very happy as a member of the NEC to look at their proposal, and hopefully today, because I believe they're having a meeting with Harriet Harman, if he's got a proposal, he should put it to us, and I would happily look at it. But I am confident that what the Labour Party staff are putting in place and what the General Secretary, Ian McNichol, has put in place is robust.
The meeting with Harriet Harman today, are you expecting proposals to come out of that? People to actually say that they want changes implemented now?
Well, last week, Andy Burnham's campaign said they thought that enough wasn't being done, so I presume they've got a proposal. We'll wait and see if they do have a proposal that we could consider. And if they have got a proposal, I, as an NEC member, am very happy to look at it and consider it. And I'm sure my other members of the NEC would be.
Could that not derail the whole process, though, at this stage? Ballots have gone out. People have voted.
Well, I don't think so, because if you find, for example, that there is large-scale Tory infiltration, which I don't think there is, but just for the sake of argument, if we did find that and you were able to identify a whole load of Tories who had voted, that those ballots can be ruled invalid.
How would you find that out at this stage?
Because the ballot papers have reference numbers on them and things like that.
OK, well, we'll see what unfolds. John Ashworth, thank you very much.